Madeleine van der Zwaan, directeur van Koninklijk Theater Carré en mag vandaag jullie even hartelijk welkom heten. En niet alleen jullie. Het is vooral bijzonder om een aantal redenen. Allereerst is deze setting. Er zijn een aantal van jullie, mag ik toch hopen, wel eerder in Carré geweest. Maar ik vermoed dat de meeste van jullie voor het eerst op het toneel zijn. Heeft iemand hier ooit op het toneel gestaan? Oh, ik zie toch 4, 5 handen. Dus daarin is die setting bijzonder. Het is ook bijzonder natuurlijk om onze zaal als een achtergrond te nemen. Het is ook voor ons heel bijzonder omdat we hier zijn voor een project waar we met z'n allen van Carré, die hier ook zijn, al een hele tijd heel hard en intensief mee bezig zijn. En eigenlijk is dit wel voor ons het moment om naar buiten te treden, omdat we het mogen doen met niemand minder dan de persoon die dit überhaupt bedacht, geschreven, nogmaals geschreven, herschreven en nog een keer heeft gedaan. Maar laten we vooral beginnen met toch de persoon waarvoor we hier zijn erbij te halen. Mag ik alvast een warm applaus voor jullie voor Miss Hadestown, Anaïs Mitchell.
Do we build a wall? We build a wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build a wall to keep us free. How does the wall keep us free? My children, how does the wall keep us free?
I was briefly explaining before I got you out of the dressing room why it's so special for us to have you here now, but also to have Hadestown. And not just because it's a beautiful show, but for a number of other reasons as well. And I think one of them being it's a type of show where there's so many layers in it. And I always like it when you can leave the choice to the audience. Do you just want to have a great night and hear fantastic music? Or do you want to get some of the other layers about the relationships, about what's happening in the world? Can we talk a little about that, how that feels for you as a writer?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, and I think as you've said, like I've been living with this show for a really long time. I started it in my 20s, in the aughts. Do you say that? The aughts, like it was 2006. And the world has changed a lot, you know, in those 15 years, almost 20, I guess. And also I've grown older, and so I've identified with different parts of the show at different times. I think when I first started writing it, I really identified with Orpheus. I was right out of school. I was like a young, optimistic, you know, idealistic artist who wondered if I could make art that would change the world in some way, and kind of like coming up against the limitations of that. And I used to identify with those young lovers, and now, you know, I'm much older, and I can identify with the older couple more, and I've also lived through a bunch of political eras and seen the kind of the themes of poverty and wealth, and the wall that always seems to be between them, and the sort of what is transactional between people. Those things have changed over the years, and I think the songs have spoken to different political moments, and that's kind of the power of the mythology, is that like it's so ancient that it will always speak. It's like it's in us all. It's deeper than any of us can understand.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the other thing that strikes me, having the pleasure to work with the whole team, for me is authenticity. There's something so pure in everything that happens. Maybe just for you guys, you know, we feel really special that we were granted the rights. So just as a side note, why this is really, really special for us as well, is that it's just premiered in West End this year. And already in the same year, we're working with the original crew from US, from London, to bring the continental premiere, and been granted rights to make our own production. But we'll do it as an exact same way as the other two. So we're using some of the same creatives from both US and UK, and we've even introduced country blind casting. So we're casting in London and here simultaneously, which is a fantastic thing to do. Such a great talent pool in both countries. Let's not underestimate our country. There's some fantastic auditions going on. But it also means that you get to understand the language really well from the creators like yourself, and there's something so pure that it's also all about the authenticity of everybody who participates on and off stage. Yeah. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, it's always been kind of a value in this show. I think that we're able to cast people who bring their full selves, you know, their whole selves to the role, and that means that it's different every time. Certainly, like what's happening in London is very different than what's happening in New York, and yeah, in London, I mean, it's always been a very diverse cast, but in London, literally the accents, you know, our Hermes has a Caribbean accent, our Orpheus now is Scottish, but the previous one was Irish, and our Hades was American, which felt very relevant. And there's sort of just a real diversity of identity and culture and what people are bringing to the role, and it feels like the story can absorb all of that, you know, and so I'm so excited to see what happens here. I know it's going to be different from anywhere else.
For a long way down, far away from the poorhouse door, either get to hell or to Hadestown. Ain't no difference anymore, way down. Hadestown, it's your part, way down under the ground. Hound dog howling, a whistle blow, train come rolling, clickety-clack. Everybody trying to get a ticket to go, but those who go, they don't come back, they're going way down. Hadestown, way down under the ground.
Another thing that's quite interesting, you know, us being an independent theater, as you know, being, you know, ik hoef jullie niet uit te leggen, hè, als onafhankelijk, niet gesubsidieerd, niet commercieel theater. Independent, going for the right artistic choices, bringing it to an audience as wide as possible is what we intend to do. But I feel also in the whole creative team, there are a lot of very independent thinking, strong women. There seems to be a, you know, very special culture that I personally find really attractive.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild that this show has become as accessible as it has, because it really came from just the fringe, you know. Certainly like the early versions of the show were from the wild woods of Vermont, you know, this small state where I'm from, and then the music world, and Rachel Chapkin, the director in New York, is really from downtown theater. Pretty much everyone who worked on the show comes from the outside, you know. One of our orchestrators, Michael Chorney, there's two, Michael Chorney and Todd Sickafus. Michael had never seen a Broadway show before he saw Hadestown, which he had orchestrated. So it really was like a lot of newcomers. And it's true, our two lead producers in New York are both women, Dale Friends and Amara Isaacs, and they had never taken a show to Broadway before. It felt like a lot of outsider energy, a lot of maverick energy, and definitely a lot of women. And it's not even that we set out for that to happen, it just kind of naturally evolved. Like I was looking for a director in New York, and I saw Rachel Chapkin's work before I even knew who it was, and I was like, whoever that is.
I want her. Great choice.
Her, yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Well, we're gonna, you know, build the wall a little bit further here.
Yes, I'm so excited. Yes. I know, it feels like a very natural extension.
Good.
Way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground. Down there is a bunch of stiffs. Brother, I'll be bored to death. Gonna have to import some stuff just to entertain myself. Give me morphine in a tin. Give me a crate of the fruit of the vine. It takes a lot of medicine to make it through the winter time. Way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground.
Let's see if we can take one or two questions from the audience. Is there anybody who wants to be first? Everybody do. Yeah, I see a hand.
Hi, my name's Kim. I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm wondering, there's been a couple of iterations of the show, and I read your book about writing the show. Is there any part that is now left out of the Broadway show that there's a piece of your heart that you're like, oh, I wish was still in there?
Did everybody hear that question? Yeah, good.
So you're wondering, are there parts, things that I wrote that didn't end up on Broadway that I miss? Yes. I mean, there's a whole cutting room floor, you know.
Well, we can make Hadestown too.
Oh, yeah.
Premiere in Amsterdam.
Partly I wrote that book because I wanted to have a home for all those little, you know, you have to really be in service of the storytelling, and it's such a collaborative art form. You can't make a musical without all these different artists, you know, the visual, the orchestrations, the sets, the props, the whole thing is, everyone is working in service of this thing, and for sure there were plenty of darlings or babies that I had to let go because in service of the thing. And also, it's kind of still evolving, you know, I changed some stuff for London, and I just was like, I kind of want to try this other thing, and I did. So who knows what'll happen.
I think, you know, you have to go and see the Dutch version, the replica here in Amsterdam, and then we're going to ask them, spot the differences, see if they notice.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll make sure we change one or two things.
Yeah.
Andere vragen? Iemand? Nee, maar ik kijk ook even naar Nicolette. Ik zie je niet staan hoe we qua tijd zitten. 5 minuten. If nobody has a question, I'll go. Ask? No? Okay. Not missing any hands. Yeah. I think if you, the good part of the stories, there is that one, they're forever relevant, and two, there's always a bit of hope. And I think, you know, for me, that's a great motivator of actually wanting to see it again and again, because it's the hope that makes you go on. Can we talk? And I think it's so, you know, we also desperately need the hope for, you know, the good worlds to win. Can we talk a little bit about your sense of that hope?
Yeah, exactly. I think, like, if there's any kind of moral in Hadestown, which I think it raises more questions than it provides answers, really. The moral has to do with Orpheus, like, he's a hero in the world, you know, there's theaters named after him all over the world, and he's a hero, and it's not because he succeeded in his mission, you know, he actually failed. But it's the fact that he tried to do this impossible thing, and that he had this impossible faith that we sort of celebrate. And so, yeah, there's something about him as a character that I feel like really embodies youth, young people coming into the world with their fresh eyes, their fresh vision, and their faith and their belief in that things could be different, things could be better. I'm gonna cry somehow.
That's what it does to you.
Yeah, and it's like the springtime of the world, you know, that this perennially happens. People will come, young people will come with their vision and their passion. And then they'll get older, just like we all do, and they will get kids and jobs and mortgages, and they'll see, you know, people elected that they don't want to be elected, and they'll become, at some level, resigned to the way the world is. But the beauty is that there always is a young person coming up. And I think that's the thing with Orpheus. You almost see him take that whole journey in Hadestown. By the time he gets to the end of the show, he's like seen too much. But there will be someone else, and that's kind of what that last song that I sang, We Raise Our Cups, is about, that, you know, that new energy, the fresh eyes, that is always coming.
And I think it's that beautiful song of hope that actually attracts such a wide, also a lot younger audiences. Because that's what I saw in New York, I saw it in West End, and we already see it with the first reactions in the Netherlands. It attracts, you know, the Orpheus of today, and the Eurydice and everything. You see a lot of 20s and 30 people really grasping onto the show. I think because the world is desperate to, you know, to believe him and to keep trying.
Yes.
Way down, Hadestown.